The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers.
Hello and welcome to the One People Show. Hello and welcome everyone to the One People Show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. And good evening, Dee.
Good morning, Lisa. How you doing?
I'm okay. Oh, the stream just crashed. Oh, seriously?
We can't
even get through an intro.
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking pleasantries. We haven't even gotten to the good juicy stuff yet. Seriously. So back up. Do you mean we have to go through the whole intro all over again there, Biggie?
Do we?
Are we live? No, we're good. Okay, we're live. It's not memorized.
I'm just going to go and bring up the chat room so I can keep an eye on that.
Okay, yeah, I've invited everyone to join us in the chat room as usual.
Can you turn that a little bit?
So everyone, happy Monday. Well, I guess it's Tuesday in Australia.
Yes. Yes, it is. Welcome to tomorrow.
I was just going to say, so how's tomorrow?
So, yeah, it's as cold as yesterday, to be honest. Do you remember the mute? Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, we have got quite a few topics to cover. So, but first, Dee, the I do not consent concept meme that you started the ball rolling yesterday. Do you want to talk about how that got kicked off?
You know what? Well, I'll give you the short form of last night's Transpicuous News because I really went into this in depth in Transpicuous News last night. It has become blatantly apparent, at least in my opinion, and several others that I've been talking to, of course, Nick, that they are trying to incite riots. They're trying to incite violent revolution to give them the excuse that they need to come in with martial law or whatever else that they want to plan on doing. It just, there's no other, in my personal opinion, there's no other explanation for the shit that's going on right now. There's been another shooting today.
Hang on, before you keep going, there's a stream of thought that's happening in my head that if I don't get it out now may never come back.
Go.
I can't remember what this thing was called, but it was like the Illuminati Manifesto. And there was a lot of, it's a fake, it's a phony, it's legit. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a definitive answer on that one, but World War I and World War II went exactly according to that script, which was apparently written in the 1800s. One of us is frozen. Biggie, which one is it? D's frozen. Okay. And then, well, there's a World War III in that script. We've got the Deagle website. Sorry, you froze. I don't know. Did you hear me through any of that?
No. My internet just turned itself off magically. I really, look, Ma, no hands. And it just turned itself off.
The Protocols of Zion. Sorry, that's what it's called.
Yes.
So there is a World War III in there. we've got the Deagle website that everyone's been talking about, which is, for those of you who hadn't seen it, just go to deagle.com, I think it is, DEAGLE. And it has current statistics for all the countries, including population, the GDP, the military spending, and a projection for 2025. A lot of the Western world, let's take Australia for an example. We've currently got about 23 million. It's expected to be 8.9 in 2025. China's pretty much the same. India's pretty much the same. The BRICS countries,
all the BRICS nations. Well, here it is. Nick and I,
which means zero growth.
Yeah, no, some of them do have growth. India grows. Indonesia has growth. Brazil, actually, almost all of South America has growth. All of Africa stays neutral or has a little bit of growth. And Asia. It's basically, if you look at, we looked through it. We didn't look at every country, 205 countries listed, but we probably did at least 80 countries, Nick and I, and basically the NATO nations all have extreme drops, anywhere between 25 to over 50% drops in population, with the exception of Turkey.
Now, I did see a couple of comments around that website. One was, because of all of the attention, the website actually had to make an announcement. And that announcement was that their projections were based on an expected global financial crisis.
Yeah.
The other thing was, what was the other thing? Oh, when I went to the Who Is for that website,
yeah,
it had been updated and changes had been made 16 hours before. And I saw a couple of comments from people saying, oh, when I went there, it looked like changes had been made 3 hours before. And someone else went, oh, yeah, for me it was, So they're perhaps fudging things now that they're getting some attention. I don't know. But so we've got that. We've got the protocols of Zion. We've got, and this is the other part. You and I have been talking about how they rewrite our history. Right? Now, I was down the flat earth hole, but there was, you got Nebuchadnezzar, right? A character from way back and his story. And then you've got a guy who was on a boat called the Nebuchadnezzar, who tried to get to the Antarctic. And if you mythologize that his story of being on a boat and heading for the Antarctica, it could be another way of extending the story, putting the characters, like if we go back and have a look at the characters in the Bible, the characters in the Old Testament and all of that, you can actually see how in the last 50 to 100 years, a lot of the same characters, the same names, the same stories are being used. So, it's conceivable that in 50 to 100 years, you use these guys and these stories to retell the same story. Do you know what I'm saying? This time it's a guy in a boat heading for heaven or the edge of the world, or whatever way you want to put it.
And like Biggie said,
sorry?
Nebuchadnezzar was also Morpheus's ship in the Matrix.
Right.
Going to Zion.
But you look at the names of the Apollo mission, all the ships that they've used in the Apollo missions, or the boats that they've used for exploration. The names of satellites and shuttles, and all these sorts of things, and they're all old. They're all significant. They're all, and I just see it as a way of again, rewriting our history, telling the same story that they've continued to tell time and time and time again throughout history. Here we've got a whole new set of characters with the same names, doing similar things that you could. Anyway, so we've got all that. So what if we're looking at all the movement in order to bring about their predicted scripted World War III, and they've already put in the last 100 years all the people, the places, and the names in place, and the stories in place. Once they've wiped out a big chunk of the population, and no one remembers, so that in 50 to 100 years they can tell the same story yet again. And are you following me? I've only just woken up, and I'm still on my first coffee. So.
I totally know, because you and I've had multiple conversations about this, and we see that kind of a setup everywhere. I mean, even take that to the destruction of these various ancient historical cities like Nimrud and Palmyra.
And Nimrod. I mean, those names like that too.
Yeah, exactly. They just
the Nimrod. What was that? The Nimrod was a boat as well. That was.
They keep bringing them back.
They keep bringing them back.
So, I mean, that's it. So you destroy the city of Nimrud, bulldoze it down so there's nothing left standing. There's no ancient history left for people to go back and refer to. The interesting thing is that it seems like the more they're trying to destroy, it's like the more is being discovered. So you've got like pyramids being found in the middle of the South American jungle. Like some guy literally walks headfirst into a pyramid and goes, "What the hell?" They forgot a pyramid they found in the water off the coast of Portugal. Apparently, that just came past my news feed today.
There's also, I sent you a video. She sounds Russian or maybe Ukrainian. That woman with the dates, her research is showing her that they've inserted 1,000 years into our history. Right? She looks at all of these old paintings, artifacts, statues, everything. And when you look at them, there's the date.
Yeah.
And then in front of the date, it might be, 723. There's a little, and it's really obvious once it's pointed out to you. It's an I with a dot, right? It's not a 1. And she talks about why they put these particular letters and why the I, and I can't remember what it was now, in front of the date. And that they've made up the last 1,000 years. They've inserted the last 1,000 years in order to make us feel that this has been going on for so much longer than it actually has, and that human evolution, human history, human growth has been this really long, slow progress. And we've been in this system for a really long time. She seems to think we've actually only been in this system for a very short time. We were free not that long ago, a couple of 100 years ago. And when I don't know, if you look at how the corporatization that we know of the world happened, it all really only started to kick in sort of like the 1700s, 1800s. That ball started to roll and head down that direction. Our history may not be. It's all coming together a little bit. I'm not getting any messages in the chat room. I can see everybody in there. Hi, everybody. But the messages aren't loading for some reason. So I've got no idea what you guys are saying. Let's see if I can get it to load.
Can you monitor the chat room too, just in case it's some bizarre, computer technical issue? Because it's not like we haven't had, that.
Any of those?
No, not at all. Okay, so here's the thing. I laughed when you talked about the date bit, because when I was putting out that declaration of non-consent and reposting it, I posted it and I looked at it and I went back in and edited it so that when I said republished, June 20th, 2015, and I added the word Gregorian. So there could be no mistake as to what calendar I was referring to. And I have no idea why. It was like, it became really important to me. No, let's put Gregorian in there so that there is no mistaking what calendar is being referred to in this moment. Right? You know, because, you know, they like to play tricks with that kind of shit. Oh, well, you know, actually that was, that date hasn't happened yet. Really? Okay. No, here's the thing. Some of the stuff that they're discovering all of a sudden now, and they're having to readjust the way they were dating things before, i.e., there is and I wish I could remember the name of the place, in Turkey. It's a new archaeological site that they've found, I guess, a couple of years ago, and it's pristine. It is really, really pristine. And the dating they've done shows that it's a lot older than what typically similar monuments in other areas of the region, down into, you know, from down Turkey down into the Middle East, etc., have been dated as. And the big thing about this is, because of the accuracy they've been able to get with dating this one, it means they have to go back now and revisit all these other monuments and go, well, wait a second. This isn't 7,000 years old. This one could actually be 10,000 or 12 or etc. So the other thing, and this just pops into my head right now, mainstream media, everyone is going on about it, is the big study released about the fact of the extinction. Major extinction event is happening. This is going to be the 6th extinction. And they're talking about the animals that are dying. They're talking about all this stuff. And then they, of course, give dates, right? And they give these dates of like, oh, well, 65 million years ago. Really? Well, what if these extinction events are actually not extinction events? They're a flipping into the next cycle. I.e., so maybe what we've seen are these events, or what they're covering up now is the discovery of past events that have showed where there's been this change.
I'm just going to jump off. The power keeps tripping. I'm just going to see what that's about. I'll be back.
Okay, well, I'll talk about the declaration of non-consent. So, as I started to say, and I talked about this on Transpicuous News last night, it has become very, very clear to me that they are trying to incite a violent reaction out of the public. I mean, especially in the States, it's insane. The shit that's happened even in the last week in the States, and the way the media is pushing it, it's very, very clear that they are setting these false flag events up. They're setting the stage for these events to take place. And the only logical explanation is to force the people, to basically enrage the people, make the people freak out, finally snap their lid, and next thing you know, you have revolution, which of course gives them the excuse to go in and begin martial law. So the one thing I talked about yesterday is it is vitally important that we recognize this, and those of us who are aware, it is kind of our job, in my opinion, to make sure that people see what is being done and not take the route to violence, because that's what they want. I mean, I cannot see any other logical explanation for it. And that's why I talked last night that it is time to start a war against them with words. And it doesn't just mean ranting and raving. To me, it is this, it has been echoing in my head for a long time, this declaration of non-consent. it is vitally important. So we know that they have to give us notice of everything they do. Legally, by law, whatever law it is that they're fucking working under, they must give us notice. I've talked about this for ages. A lot of people have. Which is why you have to go digging to find where the information is hidden and be able to recognize it as notice when it comes out.
Oh, that's another thing.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. We know that they operate on cycles, smaller cycles within cycles. You know, that you've got your roughly 20-year financial cycle. There's a 60-year cycle. You know, all of that. If somebody in the chat room, Jeff Gates is probably all over this. He'll find the answer for me real quick. NASA was started in the 50s. I'd say we're probably roughly at a 60-year cycle. Right?
Yep.
If they have to come clean every 60 years, right, then now would be the time to come clean on NASA, for example, right? Well, what better way to come clean? What better way to come clean than to bury it inside a conspiracy theory that to most is so ludicrous that everybody will throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Yep.
There's too much feedback. Oh, Dee, can you mute for a sec?
I'm sorry.
So what I'm getting at here is the flat Earth. I mean, oh my God, this thing has exploded, right? And I'm having conversations with people who are just violently opposed to the whole concept and how ludicrous it is, you know, and it's clearly pushed a button. Yet, but within the conversation is the validity of NASA, with the validity of every single thing they've been doing, from moons to satellites to GPS to everything. So the best way, I think, to come clean on something, but you don't want anyone to actually know that that's what you're doing, is to bury it inside something that's ludicrous for most people. And that's why I think it's the shape of the planet isn't really the conversation that's going on. It's all the questions that come up within and around it. And we talked, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, about how everything is going to have to become known if they want us to ride it into the next cycle. All right. But I also think that there is that whole, we have to give notice, we have to come clean, we have to do all that. And now's the time for that as well. They have to do it before the beginning of the next cycle. So watch out for, the coming clean inside of or surrounded by a whole bunch of bullshit and distraction.
Okay. Well, guess what I watched not half an hour before we went live on the air? Dutch since put out a very, very interesting video about the Van Allen belt, which of course is the reason why they can't go to the moon or Mars or anywhere, because they can't get through the fucking Van Allen belt, and their own people have admitted this.
And they're admitting it. They're saying that now. Oh yeah, but it's a real big problem. And did you hear one of the Apollo astronauts? He was asked that. How did you get through it? And you go, oh, well, we didn't know it was there, so it didn't matter at the time.
Yeah.
We didn't know it was there, so it didn't bother us.
Yeah. We didn't know. I just look like this now because, Yeah. Okay. No. Bullshit. Anyway. And I haven't, so precursor to this conversation, I have not had a chance to even finish watching the video yet. But this is so relevant. Dutch just puts out a video talking about a tether system that was put into low Earth orbit Oh, back in 1996 to suck up, basically, the Van Allen belt, to remove all the radiation out of the inner ring, if you will, of the Van Allen belt. And I'm sitting here going, what? And Nick and I are both watching this, and it's like it's the whole thing of like a train wreck as you're watching it. Like, you just can't take your eyes off it, even though you're just like, you're fucking kidding me, right? So we go through this.
You got a link for it?
I just closed it because it's YouTube and it's spinning, and I will find the link. If you go to Dutch Since, I just went out today. If someone in the chat room can go look, it is about basically, yeah, it's a video about this tether sucking up the radiation out of the Van Allen belt. Done in 1996. And we sat there and had this thud moment. It was just like, okay, and this is where it left, is I was literally grabbing my computer and running out here to my little, my little TV room, saying to Nick, going, keep looking, because I need to know. Was it a fact of Dutch found some information and managed to put the dots together and go, holy shit, they've actually done this? Or if NASA has announced it in some way, shape, or like I said, I haven't had a chance to finish watching the video yet.
It's in the chat room now.
Okay, the company that made these tethers are called tethers.com or something. It's like a really ludicrous name. Go to the site. And holy shit, Nick went through and he's just like, these guys are like, some of the shit that he's talking about, the propulsion system that they're using. Nick is floored. He's like, they're talking about geomagnetics. They're talking about how their basic thing doesn't need solid state fuel because it's basically working. And I'm totally going to bastardize this because I was only halfway listening. I was like putting on my eyeshadow at the moment while, he was reading this out to me. There you go. Yeah, like this is some interesting shit. But 1996, and the point that I just heard Dutch say was the fact of 1996 was when they really started this whole climate change thing. Oh, we've got a climate change problem. We've got a climate change. And basically the premise of it is this tether went up and, the tether snapped. So it was only supposed to be out there for like a month for testing. Oh, the tether snapped. They could never get it back. And so it's out there apparently still floating in lower atmosphere, sucking up, or not sucking up, redirecting, that was it, redirecting the energy from the lower Van Allen belt to Earth. Now, Nick's first thing was, are they trying to reproduce Wardenclyffe? Tesla's Wardenclyffe? On a much bigger fucking scale? Or is there something even more ominous? Like I said, I have not had a chance to research it yet. This was just my personal thud moment about, 45, 50 minutes ago. And I'll be looking into it. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee Nick right now is probably away on the computer looking up everything he can about this. Notice, this comes out now. Now what? Oh, what's that? 1996. Oh, we're in 2015. What, 20 years? Oh, is that kind of like 20-year cycle we're coming up on? Is there like a statute of limitations on this kind of stuff? Like you must give notice within X amount of time?
I think there is.
I think you're right. I think you are right. So, notice, my whole thing is this. This is my decision, and this is what I came to this weekend. I had a really hard weekend. It was a really, you hit rock bottom, and it's like you've just watched way too much news and overwhelmed, etc. So I sat there and was like, okay, if they can give notice however they want, then I can give notice however they want. However I want. And that's where this declaration of non-consent comes back in. And this is what I said. I did the news story last night. I pulled up all the stories. mandatory vaccine bill going through in California with the big red lines in the middle of it saying, I do not consent. And I'm going to do it. I did it again today. There was another news story that came up today about something. And the first thing I did was like, right, I don't consent to this. Stamped the big lines in the middle of it, posted up on Facebook. I am hereby giving you notice. I do not consent. And I think that we need to get everyone involved in this. We've seen memes go viral. People, like I said last night, people did this fucking ice bucket challenge. It was stupid and retarded, and it didn't do anything to help anyone, yet it went freaking viral. So let's make this our viral point. I do not consent. Let's get the conversation going. If your uncle sees you posting a news story about vaccines and I do not consent, well, what's this? What do you mean you don't consent? What don't you consent to? Get it going and hit all the groups. If you are involved in environmental groups, then pick stories about environmental devastation and put big frickin' I do not consent on it and post it out in the group. Get it going. Get people involved in standing up and actually saying it. Officially. This is my notice. I do not consent. That's my statement of notice.
Which is a great segue into. Okay, Dee and I have been talking about this for a few months, and we finally got around to it. We lit a
fire under our asses last week, actually.
Yes, and I'm going to share screen. Where is my screen? Hang on. It's not what I want. Not what I want.
Find the right one.
Find the right one. We've created a t-shirt shop, basically.
Yep.
And here it is. We're calling it Oddwear. Oddwear by Lisa and Dani.
Yep.
And we've got 3 t-shirts in there so far. Can you see them?
Yeah, if you can click on, like, for example, the odd t-shirt.
Yep.
The back of it,
so this is the odd t-shirt, which on the front says odd and proud.
No, on the front it says nothing. Wait, there it is.
It's coming. On the front it says odd and proud, and on the back it gives the definition, which is, and it's loading very slowly, odd, oppositional, defiant, disorder. Symptoms include questioning authority, defiance, easily annoyed. So all of the t-shirts in the shop basically just show a black t-shirt with white writing and a white t-shirt with black writing, but you can pick the color of your t-shirt. Yeah. So that's our first one. And I've got to order one of each. We've got our I do not consent. That's all it says on the front. And we've got I am an unfucker on the front. We're also thinking of doing another range of unfucker t-shirts with a slogan on the back. A couple of things we're thinking about doing.
Yeah.
But that's it. And it's called Oddwear. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the other one we're just talking about, because I've had several people actually, without even knowing what we were doing, mention it to me, saying the actual declaration of non-consent that I put on Facebook, going, wow, that would be so cool on a t-shirt. I'm like, coming soon. Yeah. We'll have that up very soon. Just wait. And when you're finished with screen sharing, I'll pull it up so people can see what it looks like.
Yep. Well, I am. I'll just put a link to it in there.
Yeah. So, and the important thing is,
have a look.
Besides, okay, what the hell are you doing to the page? That's just bizarre.
Oh, sorry, I should stop screen sharing. Okay.
It wasn't that the whole page went like this. Either that or I'm hallucinating. Those flashbacks that have been promising me since high school are finally kicking in. The other important thing is, okay, and I'm going to segue into something else just briefly. It is the end of June, and CCN, as you know, has been running the pledge. The pledge 300 is now turned into, I don't know, pledge 50, because I think that's about what we're stuck at, is 50 pledges. It's the end of June. There's been no money coming into the network, and we're kind of at the very, very skinny end of this. The reason why, even though there was no funding after the end of May, the reason why it managed to extend and Big ML got it to go through June is because there were a couple of very nice people who pledged an entire year in advance. So because of that, they were able to squeeze really, really tight and keep the network running for another month. Well, like I said, it is June 22nd, and there is no funding. So one of the things that we're doing with this oddware is it $3? $3 from every t-shirt you buy will go directly to CCN to help support the network. Basically, in full transparency, it's $3 for me, $3 for Lisa, and $3 for CCN. So that's my plug. The other thing is we have my company, Argyle's Garden. Argan oil is on the Etsy market. There's been some serious problems with Etsy market because basically someone hacked into the Etsy market and wiped out the shop and wiped out all the HD downloads. Isn't that nice? Like I said, it's been, oh yeah, no, they wiped out all, that's why Biggie was pulling his hair out for the last few days. All of the high def downloads of all the previous shows got hacked into and wiped out of the market. Oh, and another company is now selling subscriptions for people to watch the HD downloads. Company not affiliated with CCN. Sorry, Biggie, I know I'm telling all the secrets, but it's about time that people knew the kind of struggles that have been going on behind the scenes. I mean, everyone sees this, you know, the stream crashing, etc. They don't see the real shit that's been going on behind the scenes. So, CCN needs your support. If you can't do a pledge, if you want to buy a t-shirt, if you want to buy some argan oil, there's at least a few things there that will help. Anything that you buy from the Etsy market, parts of that will go to keeping CCN up and running. So that was my segue. I'm done.
I'm actually I had a vision of like people getting together for a, you know, whether it's a demonstration or a protest or a gathering or whatever, and everybody wearing an "I do not consent" t-shirt. You know, I mean, you don't have to have a placard, you don't have to be carrying anything, just wear your t-shirt. So you're muted.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no matter what you're protesting against, no matter what you're doing in the moment, I do not consent. It's pretty much all you need to say. I do not consent. And yeah, let's make it the meme. Let's make it the meme for right now. Push it out. Put it on everything. I do not consent. Fight the war with words.
You were going to share your screen and show the image you were talking about.
Right. Okay, hold on. I got it. Let me pull it up first. You talk for a second. Teehee. You're muted, chick.
I have nothing to say. I'm done. I can go now. Oh, okay. There is something else I was going to talk about, but we need to finish this off first because it's going in a whole other direction. I'm just going to look at the chat room for a minute. You're muted. Get it together, woman. You're still muted.
No! Ah! Fuck!
And you're muted again. What are you doing?
Am I muted? Okay.
No,
sorry. when you screen share, all the buttons for muting go in a completely different place, and I couldn't find it. So, declaration of non-consent. I do not consent to false flag events. I do not consent to terror tactics by government agencies. I do not consent to violence used against myself or my family. I do not consent to invasion of my privacy. I do not consent to interference with my freedom. I do not consent to any person, agency, corporation, group, or entity representing myself in any way, shape, or form. I do not consent to anything or anyone who limits myself in any way. I do not fucking consent. So, there you go.
So some version of that will also go on a t-shirt.
Yes. I got to stop my share now. Wait. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, give notice. It's time for everyone to fucking give notice. Give them notice. Send them, I don't know, like I said, send emails to your government every time they put out a bill or they put out legislation. Bill C-51 in Canada, everyone email or fax or write a letter to every single, your local members of parliament, your regional, your provincial, send them a letter with a big thing. Bill C-51, I do not consent. And that's it. I don't consent. Tell them.
Because and if you've got an idea too, if you've got an idea for a t-shirt slogan, let us know. Or if you've got an image or anything you'd like to see on a t-shirt, let us know.
Well, I wanted to do all the ones with the circle with the line through it. So like with the needle. So the vaccines, I do not consent with just the circle with the line through it. You know, chemtrails, GMO, fucking, I don't know, Bush. All of them. I don't consent. Actually, I saw a really, really funny meme the other day. Something about, you know, the picture of Robin Williams in Jumanji, the movie, when he wakes up and he's all like, and he's like, what year is it? And it's basically, there's Bush and Clinton running for an election, and there's this happening and that happening. There's a Jurassic Park movie out in the #1 in the theaters. What year is it? Yeah, it all replays. There you go. Cycles. Talk about cycles. Yeah, it just seems like the Bush cycle just refuses to end. That's all. Ah, yes. Ah, yes.
Well, this is in addition, and it's sort of an extension to what we were just talking about, I guess. As some people may know, I've started working with a company, and the reason I've done that is because I had to find a way to, I don't know, help others find a way to stop supporting the corporations. I wrote an article, it's on my website, it's the end tab that says Eco Shop, and I wrote an article about, it was Australian centric, about the supermarket, the major supermarkets here, and how they're ruining, you know, the farming industry. It turns out that every 30 to 40 cents an Australian spends ends up in the hands of one of two companies, Coles or Woolies, which is our major supermarket chains. How they have embedded themselves in every aspect of our lives, not just because we go into the supermarkets, but that, you know, they are the major retailers of alcohol and tobacco. They're in hardware. They're in banking and finance. They're everywhere. They're in fuel. And that, do you remember that movie? It was a little short doco. It was a Spanish one. I think it was called $100. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it shows this older guy going into a motel in a little town in Spain. And he pays $100 for a room. Yeah. And while he's being shown around to the different rooms that he could go into, the guy at the counter runs off to the local brothel, I think it is, and pays $100. Well, then she runs off and uses that $100 to pay her bill at the butcher's, and then the butcher pays, whatever. And meanwhile, this guy's getting shown around different rooms and doesn't like them. Eventually comes back to the counter, and that $100 has done the rounds through town and ends up back at the motel. And he gets his money back because he chooses not to stay, and he walks away with his $100. But everybody in town has just been satisfied with the same $100, right? And that, to me, is what is money's true purpose. It's just a token that we share amongst ourselves as we, exchange. And that cycle would never end, except for one thing. You get the corporations are designed to interrupt that cycle and suck that money up and out of the circulation. And because once it goes into the hands of a corporation, that's it. It's gone for good. It just gets sucked up and harvested out, and we never see it again. And they've just plotted these corporations in so many spots in the cycle to harvest. And then they reintroduce it at some point in the form of debt. So how do we stop supporting and feeding this cycle and keeping it amongst ourselves, keeping it moving, keeping it in the community and flowing? And the only way is to be really, really, really conscious about every dollar we spend and where we spend it. And if you've got any choice between paying a corporation for something or paying a small business, a family-owned business, your neighbor, whoever, then making that choice and taking that step. And that's why I chose to work with the company that I am. And it's hard going because you're trying to get people to change habits and be conscious about and really get the concept that every dollar they spend is a vote, and it's support. It's telling the universe what we do consent to and what we are prepared to support and what we're okay with. If we don't get that, if we don't get how important it is, we're just going to keep feeding the beast. We need to starve the beast. And that's what I'm doing. So if anybody wants to find out more about what I'm doing, just go to that page. There's a link. I do an overview a couple of times a week on Zoom like this, and you can come and see what I'm talking about. But that's one way that we can have an impact right now, is to just think about who's going to get this dollar, because every dollar that goes into a corporation, you're not just supporting the corporation, you're supporting whatever they're doing in the background. The lobbying they're doing, the environmental destruction they're a part of, the animal testing, the slave wages in some third world country, whatever's going on, you're supporting that. And we can stop it just like that.
Well, I was there. At one point in time, I was there, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine, oh God, like 6 or 7 years ago, when I said something about, we just had to, she'd called me and I'd be, oh yeah, we had to go run out to Walmart or whatever, which is of course our North American equivalent of the corporations you're talking to, one of them. And she was just like, oh, I can't believe you would go there. Why would you spend your money there? And you do your fallback, your instantaneous excuse is always, you know what? It's cheap. That's why I go there. I can go and buy, some cheap stuff, and it's inexpensive, and it's all I can afford. So then therefore, and we had a long conversation about it, and she made me look at things a little differently. And from that moment on, all of a sudden you start taking notice. So for example, you could go to Walmart and you could get a $3 t-shirt on sale, t-shirt on sale for $3. And you could wash it 3 times, and either A, it fell apart, B, it shrank, or it stretched, or it basically looked like a rag within a few launderings. And you sat there and you went, okay, I got to wear that t-shirt for, a month and a half, and I spent $3 for it, but now it's garbage, and I have to go out and spend another chunk of money to go buy another one. And it was the same, and I watched it play through, and all the things like you go there to buy the kids' school shoes because it was cheap, and you're really, really bust broke. So you go and you buy these cheap, which fall apart within a month, 2 months, and you just have to go and buy them again anyway. And then I saw a documentary, and this was a long time ago, it was on YouTube. And it was a guy talking about Walmart specifically. And he said, Walmart's MO is to bring on companies, manufacturers of really good products. So in Canada, one of the examples this guy used was, we have a brand, a company that makes plastic stuff, like bins that use storage bins, tote bins. They make all plastic, whether it's drain trays for your dishes to dry on, but that's their specialty, is their bins. Rubbermaid is the name of the company, and they were well known. If you had to go buy a storage bin to put clothes or anything in, you bought Rubbermaid because the things were made so well, good quality, they were virtually indestructible. It was well worth any money you spent. And then Walmart contacted them and said, oh, we want to sell your products, but you have to sell them to us for this price. And Rubbermaid, being all excited, going, ooh, major, oh, you see the dollar signs, oh, major distribution. And they signed up with Walmart. And immediately, once the orders started coming in, they went out, and Rubbermaid had to go open up new factories, new plants to be able to keep up with the amount of orders they were now getting from Walmart. And once they had that all set in motion, Walmart came back to them and said, okay, now you're going to lower your prices. Now we're only going to pay you this much. And this is a company now who's just spent millions and millions of dollars to upgrade all their facilities. And it's like, oh shit, well, that is a huge chunk out of our profits. Well, what happened, long and short of it, is they started making an inferior product using not as good quality manufacturing or ingredients, if you will, in their plastics. And now you have a situation where Rubbermaid is shit. Their products fall apart just like any dollar store products fall apart. And why? Because Walmart strong-armed them. And it is their way of doing business with everyone. So
and it's the same with the supermarkets here and the farmers. They lock a farmer into anything up to a 5-year contract, give them a good price for their milk, for example, and then get them to up their production. It's corporate terrorism that
it is. It's exactly
what I talk about on these overviews. So that they often will get a company or a farmer or somebody to go into debt in order to expand so that they can meet the order too. And then when that 5-year contract is up, or 3-year contract, whatever it is, they go, oh, well, we don't need your milk anymore. Now the farm is reliant. The small company, that small business or whatever it's done, it's so dependent in that arrangement that when they come back to them and go, well, we'll only give you half price for or whatever we were doing, they have no choice. They get locked into them. And then often they're selling them at less than cost and they go under. It's corporate terrorism. and if we don't stop supporting...
also own the financial institution that, financed them the loan to expand their business, because that's always rolled into these deals. Then guess what? Now the corporation, it's a win-win for them, because now they foreclose on it. They take the plant, they take it over, and look, now it's ours, and we can do this as many times as we want. So like for me, I made the choice. I buy everything secondhand, because I would rather buy a really, really good quality t-shirt secondhand for $3 than buy a Walmart t-shirt new for $3. Why? Why spend the money wisely, right? It's about being inventive. I mean, I get it. When we talk about being broke, Lisa and I are pretty damn fucking experienced with making pennies stretch as far as we can. But there's always a solution beyond dealing with the big guys. There's always a solution. Sometimes you have to work at it a little harder. Like, think about it. Instead of just walking in and getting what you need and walking out, sometimes you have to plan it in advance. I mean, that's kind of some of the reason behind the way we set up Gaia's Garden. The same reason, right? To cut out the middlemen, cut out all the big guys, and give our friends the opportunity, people that we know in different places, to distribute the products, and the money that's made stays within the family, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So that you're not feeding the beast. It's just the way that we've come up with,
And especially if they are planning another global financial meltdown.
Yeah.
Keeping it in circulation, keeping it moving communities is the only way to really sort of prolong anything that they may be trying to pull off.
Well, I mean, when you talk about financial meltdowns, I mean, so for example, I put out an article today on removing the shackles. 2 major British newspapers put out 2 articles in the last 2 days. One was in the London Times, that one of the major financial fund managers, this guy's really, really famous and well known, basically made the statement that everyone needs to start putting cash under their mattress. And like I said when I put out the article, okay, so ignore the disinformation, because he's saying things like, we thought we had 10 years, but maybe now we only have 5 years. And I go, that's a crock of shit. Because these fund guys, they want your money to invest, because that's how they make money. So if the guy who's running the investment fund is telling you to put your money under the mattress, you know that the crash is imminent. And I mean, seriously fucking imminent. And we have the Greece debacle that's playing out right now. And the fear porn, the article that I published today was like, England, the English government, the British government has put together a rescue arrangement. They've had to put together rescue in evacuation scenarios for all those British tourists who were going to maybe sort of could get, stuck in Greece should Greece all of a sudden leave the euro and have a financial crash. And the whole article is fear porn. I mean, and it's so loaded with programming terms. So I dissected the entire article line by line, pointed out every bit of programming, pointed out the ridiculous of how they contradict themselves in the same article. But they're the warning signs, right? And everything now is, of course, with the European Union, you got to blame everything on Greece. Because, it's all Greece's fault, right? It's not the fact that they themselves are freaking destitute and bankrupt. No, it's all Greece's fault.
Just going to change tactics again, just based on the conversation that's currently happening in the chat room. A couple of questions about IT&J and other stuff that's going on Facebook. What I see, this is okay. This is how it played out for me. Personally, I was absolutely in support of Sasha and US Nation and IT&J. Then Caleb Skinner's association with it became apparent, which brought up questions for me. And in the attempts to ask questions, there were I actually wasn't on a call with Sasha because of time zone differences. However, I trusted Dee completely and Biggie completely to have the conversation on my behalf. They knew what my concerns were, shared them with them. There were several attempts and several conversations to get answers. We either didn't like the answers, we didn't get the answers, or the answers left more questions. And time was of the essence. So for anybody out there who thinks we just publicly went out without any discussion in the background beforehand, no, that's not true. We also didn't make any accusations, or no, that we didn't go into any name calling. We didn't do any of that stuff. Mudslinging, it was purely, these are our concerns. These are the questions that we have, and these are why. The result has been that there's been a couple of individuals who have come out for some reason, decided this is all their, their business as well, and made some some really horrendous attempts at character assassinations, and what I see is yet another attempt to create camps. There's the ITNJ and Sasha versus the Lisa and Dee and CCA or whatever, whatever little groups they want to create. And it's not, as far as I'm concerned, there are no camps. There are a whole bunch of people who really want solutions, creative solutions, but have all been burned. And we all want to make sure that these solutions are the right ones. And let's be as meticulous as we can with every step as we go and ask the questions. I've been in that situation before where I've let it slide, or I've given somebody the benefit of the doubt, or I can't do that anymore. And I don't think Dee can either. So this is not about anyone versus anybody or camps or sides or any of that stuff. And I'm not going to play that game, and I'm not going to mudsling, and I'm not going to assassinate anybody's character, because we can spend all of our time being completely distracted by that bullshit and not having the conversations that we should be having, because we're trying to defend ourselves or attack somebody else. I'm not doing that.
That's not even good. That's not that. So the question was just asked in the chat room if we would have a certain person who made these allegations come on the show and tell us why they made those allegations. No, I'm not going to ask them that, because I don't give a shit.
Oh, the one where you mean the one where we're child abusers and thieves?
Yeah, yeah,
that one.
Thieves and child abusers and liars and
drug addicts.
Drug addicts. That's right. And I'm sorry. You have to understand. Okay, this is the biggest point. Even in Morocco, where hash is everywhere and is almost cheaper than cigarettes, Lisa and I don't smoke. I mean, cigarettes, yes, but we don't do drugs. Just because that's a path we've been there, done that fucking years ago. And yeah, it doesn't, I don't drink. So I laugh. I once had a bartender, I worked as a bartender, and somebody made an allegation to the owner against me saying, she's drinking on duty. And I yelled it out to the rest of the staff of, apparently they think I'm an alcoholic, and everyone lost their shit because everyone knows I don't drink. No, because I don't like alcohol. So when someone comes up and says things like, and they're a drug addicts, I'm just like, you picked the wrong one, dude. Seriously, because anyone who knows Lisa and I knows that we don't do drugs. But anyways, that's fine. Everyone makes their own choice. No, I'm not going to have this person on. I don't give a shit. I just seriously, I don't care, because I published it. I have a screenshot of the comment. I published it on Facebook to let everyone know what was being said. And that's all I need to do, because I know who I am, and I know that I'm not a drug addict or a child abuser or a liar or a thief. So, okay. No, I have no interest in having this person on. I have no interest. I will say this. I have had a continuous stream of emails, Skype messages, Facebook messages with screenshots of comments that have been said about me, about Lisa, about us, publicly and in private messages. I have copies of emails that have gone back and forth. I have literally like freaking stacks. And you know what? I just don't care, because I come from where I come from. I asked my questions and I didn't get my answers. And therefore I made my decisions based on the fact of the answers that I was given, I know were incorrect. And the rest of them were never given to me. So I don't need to go any further. And for me, this is a closed door. I'm done. I don't want to talk about this anymore, because I've made my decision. I said everything I needed to say. I asked my questions publicly. If people want to continue and ask those questions themselves, which they are doing, that's their choice to make. I asked my questions. I looked for my answers. I researched the fuck for fucking weeks on this. Like, I mean, a huge amount of hours spent researching everything. So I don't feel the need to go on with this, because this is now, as far as I'm concerned, now a distraction.
What you and I putting our questions out there led to, from what I can see, is a lot of people also asking questions, going straight to the source, trying to get their questions answered, and they ended up where we were. They didn't like the answers they got, or they didn't get the answers, and so I think the people who have made those attempts sort of can see where we're coming from and why we had to do what we did publicly. We had to pose our questions publicly. And that's how it should be. I mean, the whole thing is supposed to be transparent. So the question should be asked publicly and the answer should be given publicly. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see the need to do it all behind closed doors. I mean, not that those attempts weren't made anyway, but had we got the answers we needed, then our support would have been there publicly as well.
I mean, that was kind of exactly it. I mean, I had this conversation with a couple of people who were involved in asking the questions, and I said that after I had the conversation I did with Sasha, when my internet died and I got knocked off for like 30 seconds or a minute, when I came back, he was gone off the call. So I typed in a whole pile of my concerns, and I quoted exactly his own words that were used in the interview that he did with Heather, which is the alarm bell that I had. And I never got a response. And if I'd gotten a response that was like, hey, you know what? I'm absolutely up for talking about this. I'm really slammed. I'm so busy. Can we talk about this next week? I would have been fucking awesome. Okay. And I would have sat back and would have waited until, okay, but I got no response. And to me, no response when it's I know something that's that important is a response. And that's why we went public. But
well, we were also up against the clock with the launch of the thing.
Exactly. And the responses that had come in to a couple of the other questions, which we discussed last Tuesday with the whole thing about the Bar Association, et cetera, the responses that were given were bullshit. And I'm sorry, I will call it bullshit because I know it's bullshit. And I went and asked questions of people like, you know, friends of mine who are and have been judges, and asked them, and they clarified for me exactly what the Bar Association is. So, you know what? Sorry, I'm not going to buy into the bullshit, and I will call it such. But
hang on, somebody in the chat room has just said that apparently Sasha made a comment on Facebook saying, "Are you aware that nobody has asked me any questions?" Now, if he did write that, that's a blatant lie.
Do you want to see the screenshot? I have the screenshot of that too. Sorry. Yes, he did write that.
Seriously?
He wrote that no one's asked him any questions. I have literally if you were to actually print them off, all the Skype messages, the Facebook messages, and the emails that I've got copies of the emails that people have sent asking the questions. Like this. So I know.
Plus your own conversations with him and your own texted questions. And
yeah, I asked the questions. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'm not going to play that game anymore. When it comes, I know, here's the thing. I know a lot of people have a lot more questions. And a lot of people want to hear responses, etc. All I can say is if you have questions and you want responses, then it is your responsibility to go get them. For myself, I've heard all I need to hear, and I'm not playing into this distraction anymore. I have more important things to do with my time. I do. I can't keep wasting show. I'm sorry. I can't keep. We have more important things to talk about on this show than to keep rehashing this stuff.
So enough said. Moving on.
Yes, moving on.
Oh, now they're having a whole discussion in the chat room about alcohol.
Yeah, I'm a cheap drunk. I have like one glass of wine and that's it. I'm done.
Comment from Jeff. I think this was an exercise of exposing yet another saviour myth of the ITNJ and New Earth Nation. Isn't it interesting that transparency happened before the launch? This is a quickening of transparency.
Mm-hmm. It just reaffirms to me. I had so many conversations with people who were so devastated when the questions came up, and they saw, and people who went through when we went through the treaty. I got tons of messages after that from people who just said, I had no idea. Like I just signed it. I didn't even really. I didn't until you guys started talking about it, and then it was like, you know, and people were devastated. To me, it's kind of like what Jeff said, but this is more of an enforcement in my own mind of like, we have to stop looking externally and we have to do our own thing. Just fucking do it. It's the time now.
Okay, can I just move on?
On you up, please. Yes, I'm happy.
Again, prompted by the chat room. People are asking if I had my holographic kinetic session. And the answer is yes, I did.
Yes, could you tell us a little bit about this?
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, I had mine with a guy called James, who I didn't have it with Steve directly. James is probably the guy that's the most experienced other than Steve. He's been working with him, training with him for about 5 years. And if you thought Steve talked fast, apparently that's a thing that happens with all holographic kinetics people because they. how to explain the process. You're totally conscious. There's nothing, none of this. You're not in any kind of trance or state or anything like that. Totally conscious, and yet it seems to zero in really quickly and tap into memories, emotions. You feel things. I had an experience of seeing myself as a 3-year-old boy, of being a 3-year-old boy in the woods, and I knew it was a long time ago. This was, I don't know how long ago. It just felt like eons ago. Another one of being a young woman. I knew I was a young virgin in a temple with 2 men and 2 women who were doing a ceremony and evoking some being that I was supposed to join with. And you can, I don't know how to explain it, because you have to have felt it. You have to feel this energy. Do I recommend it? Yeah, absolutely. I've had a couple of people come at me and say it's just another form of mind control. You know, it's NLP. It's and maybe, who knows? Maybe it is. But what you're essentially doing is going in and rewriting your story. And if you're doing it through just kind of reprogramming your mind and telling yourself a different story, then great. As long as it works, as long as the result is positive. And I've seen a positive result. And it's still unfolding. There is a course happening, a training course happening here in Sydney in, I think, August. So, you know, if I've got the money, I really want to go and do it. There's also criticism of the course cost, which I have to kind of laugh at, because I know people who've spent $10,000 to $20,000 becoming a Reiki master. You know, it costs you $3,500 to $5,000 to go and do a course to get your yoga teacher accreditation. This is less than both of those. And when it comes to Steve, I know he uses that money so that he can go and do a lot of free work in communities. Oh, I've got a little bird just popped in. How do I feel since? I feel lighter. I feel clearer. I feel freer. I feel more centered. I feel more me. I don't know. I had a couple of funky dreams that were sort of in support of what came up in the session. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what came up, because it will get, I know it will get completely frigging twisted, and you know, so I'm not even going to do it. But I think it's important work. I really do. And to be honest, if Steve's right about all the different ways in which we can be, I don't know, what's the word? anything from possessed to tagged, then there's probably, I can't see a person on the planet who probably doesn't have some kind of interference. And just getting clear of that, is really important. What I have seen is also, and they do warn you about this once you've gone and got clear or clearer, is how you can feel like attack, people, situations, circumstances, and events trying to come at you and recontract with you. Been a lot of that. It did give me, okay, what did come up? And this is all still a work in progress in my head, right? And it's to do with epilepsy. So follow me on this, right? What came up? How do I explain? How do I even start on this one? When you have a grand mal seizure, there's this physical sensation, and it might last for, actually, I don't know how long it lasts for, because you lose all perspective of time. It could be half a second, it could be 5 seconds, but it's really, really distinct, and it tells you, I'm about to have a seizure, and there's no stopping it. Right. Then I was thinking about, so what my big Christmas Day experience was that physical feeling stretched out for like 9 hours. That's where I was. What I kind of intuitively got during the session was that feeling is the tension that's caused when something is trying to come in, something external, and I'm trying to keep it out. That's what I got. Then I remembered our friend in Morocco who had seizures and what was said at that time, which is the best way to protect yourself from something coming in is for your brain to literally just switch off. It's a protective mechanism. And then I was thinking about every scary possession film I've ever watched, like the Emily Rose one, and all that stuff. Seizures are a big part of that. They were always people who suffered from seizures. And then I've got this book, which I still haven't completely finished reading, but it was written by a Spanish guy, and a friend of mine happens to be his niece, and she was the one who translated it into English, so she gave me the English version. And it's a really dry academic read, so it's like, it's hard going. So I haven't finished it. But he did a study on all these people who, throughout history, some of the great artists and philosophers, and they all suffered from epilepsy and grand mal seizures. And I know that there's a link. There's something here. I haven't quite put it all together yet, but if I'm even close about the grand mal, what they may well be. And the thing is too, the people who are connected to the angelic realm, psychics and what have you, all said to me when they tuned into what happened to me on that Christmas Day, was they saw this big angel above me just blasting me with their energy and filling me up, and how wonderful and beautiful it all was. But if Steve's right, there's a bloody winged serpent behind all that, right? So if that's the case, then I spent Christmas Day fighting that off. 9 hours worth. It's the other aspect of this that's confusing is after that Christmas Day experience, I was in the most amazing place. I was in this heart-based, unconditional love for everybody, glowing energy space where strangers were stopping and staring at me in the supermarkets and in the streets. It was like, I felt like a freak. My abilities as such went through the roof. You know, every single day I was getting information. I was having these experiences. I mean, some of the people who, if you were around that time listening when we first went to Morocco, you may remember my I couldn't even come on the show one night. I was having the heartgasm night, you know. So there was an amazing period after that. And then when we moved into Alstom, it all stopped, which is another piece of this puzzle that I'm trying to put together. So my session with HK brought up a lot of questions, and I'll be going for more to try and get more and more clarity. But if the seizures are somehow connected to all of this, then I've been dealing with external energy wanting to attach itself or tag me or whatever since I was about 8, if that's the case. So anyway, more questions, basically. And you're muted. And you're still muted.
Yeah, I know. My computer just decided to have a little glitch out and it lost my everything. More questions. You know, it just seems like the deeper we go down certain rabbit holes, the more questions just come up, and then another dot appears and you kind of connect that dot and you go, oh, wait a second. That's interesting. Wait, how does that relate to all of this other stuff over here, right?
Someone's asking quickly how much a session costs, and I guess it depends on the practitioner. With Jamie or James, it was $150 Australian. So I guess it depends on who you go to and how experienced they are as to what they charge.
I would, yeah. I'd like some answers now. Hardcore answers. Not just, the kind of we think it could be, maybe sort of. I'd kind of liked it. I'm pretty sure someone's got a manual around here somewhere. If we could just find the manual, I'm sure there's some instructions in there that tells us, what's next. I don't know. Seriously.
Actually, I'm bringing a conversation back around to where we were before.
Okay.
I think I brought this up on another show. The Dark Rift.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back into, again, it's what's coming out of the flat Earth conversation, right? Because people are dissecting this and approaching this, researching this from so many different angles. Now, I'm not a Christian by any stretch, right? I'm just getting that out there in case it needed to be said again. Yet I'm finding some of the more interesting questions are coming from the biblical or Christian researchers.
Seriously? Could you just stay out of my head? Do you know what I did last night?
Oh, what?
I reread about 7 books of the book of Revelations last night. Because something came up. Something was mentioned somewhere. And all of a sudden I went, wait a second. And I literally, until 2 o'clock in the morning, was sitting there reading through various, 6 different versions of the book of Revelations and looking at the historical context again, because I have these big questions and it comes into this whole thing. We talked about cycles. Okay, so I'll bring this up because you're talking about cycles. Okay. Do you remember a conversation we had? It was before we came to Morocco the first time with Heather. And there was a guy that we knew. He was in one of the Skype rooms or email. I can't remember. And somehow on one of the shows, we were all on the radio show one night, and something was brought up, and I cannot at this moment remember what the trigger was. And Heather got an email the next day, or a Skype message the next day from this guy saying, well, you know, the Bible's backwards, right? And he said, Revelation isn't the first book. Isn't the last book. It's the first book. And I remember all of us kind of going, oh, wait a second.
Does that put Genesis at the end of the story?
Genesis is at the kind of, well, it depends on how you want to look at it. And because my first thing was, that's what he was saying. He said, Revelations is first, Genesis is last. But I don't think so. I think it's basically, if you take Revelations off the end of the Bible and put it before Genesis, and we talk about the cycles. We talk about the changing of the cycles, and that's how we started this whole conversation. And there was and I wish I had my notes now, because like I said, I was doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning, because, you know, I have nothing better to do at 2 o'clock in the morning. As usual. There's specific things that are talked about in Revelations that are extremely Judaic, i.e. if you have, so for those of you just joining in who don't know my history, I was actually raised as a Jehovah's Witness. My family are all Jehovah's Witnesses. So unlike the Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses read their Bible every day. So I have read the Bible from cover to cover at least 3 times. So if there's one thing I know, it's the Bible, you know, depending on which translation you want to talk about. And if you know the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament, versus the Greek scriptures, the New Testament, i.e. Christ, the Christian Bible, so to speak, there is an extremely different feel to both. Especially when you read the early Hebrew scriptures. When you read the first Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers, the first 5 books of the Bible, I mean, God's a fucking asshole. Seriously, Yahweh, he's a fucker. I'm sorry, he's vengeful, and all he wants to do is blow everything up, destroy everything, and tell everyone what to do. He's a real fucking asshole. Now go back, if you want to have a little fun, and read Revelations. Because there's several sections of Revelations where it talks about the Lamb of God and the Lord God, who is, again, we get into the whole biblical thing, and we go into the Apocryphal of John, that Yahweh is not God, i.e. source. Yahweh is the cheater God. He's the wannabe. He's the guy who's the vengeful Anunnaki, if you will. I don't care. I hate names like that. But he is the fake. And if you go read Revelations, there are scriptures, when you read it, when it's talking about the Lamb of God, etc., where you really don't know if this is the good guy or the bad guy. It is very, very unclear, and it is very reminiscent of the first 5 books of the Bible. So if you take Revelations off the end of the Bible and throw it in front of Genesis, Revelations was the end of the cycle. Genesis, the new beginning, according to the Judaic tradition, and go forward from there. And there's some very interesting shit, cyclic, if you will, cyclic, sorry, whatever, you know, cycles, those things, in Revelations. And you have to read it and you look. And then we talked about this a few weeks ago, and we said, wait a second, we're talking about the whole idea of the names got out of my head, Yahweh or the Anunnaki, El, Ankil, whatever you want to call that being, i.e. not source, if you will, but, you know, this make-believe God, this being who set himself up to be God, who started this whole religious fiasco. And I just lost my point. Well, that was just sucky, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, and I've completely forgot where I was going before you started all of that.
I'm sorry. Just it was so relevant, the whole thing of cycles. When you look at the whole thing of the cycles coming through, and you look at the changing of the history, like we talked about, and the shit that's going on in the Middle East right now, where that is purportedly, biblically, and not just biblically, but according to kind of the big three, if you want to, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, the center, the cradle of life, so to speak. And so you go through and you wipe it out because you're getting ready for the change of the cycle. And you don't want anything hanging around that might clue in, for the next cycle of, wait, we don't want that story. We want the Nebuchadnezzar to be the ship that's going to Antarctica, not some Babylonian king who has visions and weird dreams and need prophets to come in and, decipher them for him. No.
So even though that we've actually kind of, on the surface, discussed a whole bunch of disconnected things, when you look at the course of this conversation over the last hour and a half,
Yeah.
we've got the potential rewriting of history and insertion of an extra 1,000 years so that we feel like we've been in this predicament for a lot longer than we actually have. We have short cycles of 20 to 60 years that are playing out, and the disclosure of much of the bullshit now, because we're at the end of a cycle. Having it all been hidden and disguised in amongst what is potentially seen as outlandish conspiracy theories, but disclosure nonetheless.
Yeah.
We've got the potential rewriting of the story and of history by using the same names and events create stories to bring those names forward again in order to be able to rewrite it for the next cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go back, when you look at the Christ cycle, right, you've got like 16 or more different beings, personalities throughout history with the same story. Born of a virgin on the 25th of December, 12 disciples, crucified, resurrected after 3 days, being called the light, the lamb, the son, doing healings, starting their ministry at the age of 12.
Yep.
That basic story, right? There's elements of that within at least 16 other stories throughout history and characters. So getting ready to write it all again, we've got characters and vessels and stories and journeys over the last 100 years in order to be able to compile all of those together again to retell the story.
Mm-hmm.
We've got we've also got the harvest. We've got the movies coming out like whatever that is.
Jupiter Ascending. Yeah. Which I just watched.
It's all about the harvest. Again, yeah.
Yeah.
And the harvest can be, and which we also touched on with the whole corporation thing, right? About how it harvests and siphons out the energy from and the money from.
Yep.
Right. That's just one harvesting tool.
Yeah.
And they're getting geared to really ramp that up again with another global financial crisis. So that's like turning up the harvesting system. It'll be to suck all the energy and the money out of the system. We've got and how can I put this? Then we've also got our side, what we could call our side of the story, which is we're coming out like Steve Richardson, holographic kinetics and other modalities and information, and Lily and the planet itself is doing its thing at the end of this cycle to counteract all of that, or set the stage for the next cycle. Man, this does your head in. Try to put all this together.
That's why I'm looking for the instruction manual.
Okay, I'm going to read what's going on in the chat room.
That's what I'm saying. Like I honestly, it would be so funny if I actually set up a camera and just recorded a day in the life of Dee, and the conversations and the complete U-turns and the sudden appearance of rabbit holes that I dive down out of seemingly nothing, but something triggers, and then you go looking and you go, oh, wait a second. Yeah, I would make a hysterical reality TV show. I think it would make everyone crack up.
That's what I was going to say. I think early on is looking at some of the way these biblical scholars are going at the flat Earth thing. I was watching a guy last night who talked about in one of the stories when they're talking about how the 7 days, I think, when Earth was created and whatever. And there was windows. There's windows in the sky. There's windows in the firmament to allow God to look in, right? And also, because there's a lot of conversation about what stars are.
That 13,000-year-old satellite that they know is up there?
Well, stars are angels as well.
Okay.
Right? Again, we're talking about a biblical perspective on this.
Okay. Yeah.
Stars are angels that are actually given a position in the sky to watch Earth and like be sentinels. And they have to hold that position. And there's even a character whose name you may know, who is like the police, the angel police, the star police. It's like, this is your spot. This is your spot. And I'm going to, he makes sure that everybody stays where they're supposed to. Right? But it's this window. And the dark rift of the Milky Way, when you look at a lot of, like the Mayans in particular, but a lot of cultures, talked about the dark rift. It's like this window that opens and closes at certain times in the cycles, these grander cycles. And then you've got the waters above. So remember there was the firmament that separated the waters from above and the waters below. You've got stories of great floods. You've got the Great Rift opening and closing. So what if the Great Rift in the Milky Way is in fact some kind of opening or portal to whatever's outside? And if these waters are literally waters that existed, the Great Rift opened, the waters come in, flood the earth, that's the Great Flood, the rift closes. There's, I don't know.
Here's
my head wants to just go.
Because I was looking down the whole firmament thing as well. Because when I was getting ready to do all the stuff on Tug for the Untangled Gathering and the origins, I was looking up the origin stories of all these first peoples on the planet, all these oldest cultures. And again, so many of them talk about the firmament. So is the Van Allen belt the firmament? The impenetrable radiation belt?
Well, the thing that gets me too is these ancient cultures, the Egyptians. Let's just take those. The Egyptians built some of the most amazing structures that we can't replicate today still, right? They're renowned for their cosmology. Their knowledge of the stars in the heavens was so accurate that they were able to build those pyramids in alignment with Orion's belt and whatever. They were able to, the measurements, they say that the measurements of the pyramids actually relate to the radius of the planet, the circumference of the planet.
Yeah.
However, that is in contradiction to their own cosmology. So if they could be at that time so advanced in their knowledge of the heavens and the stars and the movement of everything and these long cycles, they could so advanced in their technology for architecture, for healing, you name it, math, everything. They knew a lot, and yet they had the shape of the planet wrong. How can you have such knowledge, such accuracy about so much of the world around you and the environment around you and the planets that are supposed to be, millions of miles away?
Okay, but here's this.
And yet not have the ground that you're actually standing on kind of right. How can you do that?
We don't know what they actually believed back then. What we have
what they do. You've got the Great Mother Sky.
Yeah.
You've seen that woman who she body, and it's got the stars are all in her body.
Yeah.
She is the firmament.
Yeah. Right. That doesn't mean that the planet was flat in their mind. It just was a vision of the firmament above them.
No, I think there are actually images of similar images like you see in the Old Testament.
But here's the whole thing, right? Yes, and it does come up. The problem when you deal with all of these ancient languages is it's open to interpretation because there's no one alive now who actually spoke the language, who understood. And we go right back to the biblical. There are words that have been deliberately corrupted. Scripture, etc., where words have been deliberately corrupted to mean something now that they did not mean when it was originally written. And so someone could look at, let's say a cartouche that has let's say it's got a picture of a flat earth or what someone is interpreting as a flat earth. But that doesn't necessarily mean it does. Maybe it just means Joe's field over there is really, really flat. He's got no rocks in it. We really like Joe's field. We've watched this happen. And then with every single ancient language that's uncovered, the reality of it is we can only guess. And we know that language has been completely changed. I mean, the famous one that I use all the time when people want to tell me that the Bible's been translated absolutely line for line, letter for letter, the exact same. I'm like, yeah, but the scripture in the Hebrew scriptures, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. The original word was the Hebrew word for warlock, except that when that was written, a warlock didn't mean a male witch, it meant a poisoner. Thou shalt not allow a poisoner to live. Had nothing to do with witchcraft or wizards or anything else. But along comes a change in society. It's like, oh, well, we got, the hammer of the witches coming out, so we got to rechange this thing. We got to rechange something to support our witch hunt, literally. So let's just change what the meaning of this word is. And that's a notable fact. All you have to do is you can go look up and see ancient manuscripts that show you the Hebrew word that is used there and look it up and you can see for yourself. That doesn't mean witch or warlock. It means poisoner. And that's all through the Bible. So if they can change a language that's not a dead language, i.e. we see it now, the word, organic and pure and natural, which now actually don't mean any of those things because they've legally rephrased them to mean something completely different. What are the chances are that we translated some cartouche that's written on some ancient Egyptian wall correctly? We don't know. Sorry, that was me rambling. I'll shut up now. Go sit in the corner.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so interesting conversation.
Yeah, another show of lots and lots of questions and no answers.
Yay! So yeah, I would recommend a session if you can get one. You get to experience it for yourself. It's not one of those things that translates, to be honest. You had to be there.
You literally had to be there.
Really, only then can you feel it. And who knows? I may end up being a practitioner one day.
Then you can come to Morocco and,
and I can come to you.
Because I don't know, I'm just pretty sure that no one's going to be around the corner for me to go have my own session. So.
No, probably not. Hopefully you'll be in Australia by then. Anyway. Just saying.
Just saying.
Yeah, Jeff's going to relocate, aren't you, darling?
Yeah, see, this is Lisa's agenda is to relocate everyone to Australia to be with her.
Yeah, that's it. Why not? Weather's beautiful.
I don't like Abbott, so no, I'm not coming to Australia while he's still.
Oh yeah, but we're going to get rid of him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, good luck with that. He's kind of like a bad rash. Kind of like Harper.
They're all a bad rash.
I know.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments before we sign off, guys, in the chat room?
You got 2 minutes to come up with your questions. Okay.
Jeff said, "Green Aussie bound." Yay! Just recap the thought who feels 10th insight. Yeah.
Okay. So everyone knows, I'm going to let everyone on this crew here, our listening crew, know. Transpicuous news. There will be no Transpicuous news this coming Wednesday or Sunday or next Wednesday because we have the very first Untangled Gathering live stream, the conference Saturday on CCN, of course, going back to look at the origins. And we have some awesome people who are going to be presenting, like awesome people. I'm really excited. And so I'm getting ready for that on Saturday. And then on Monday, I have to move. So, and I haven't packed anything. So, yeah, gotta figure that out.
Okay. In regards to the Untangled Gathering, I'm going to be interviewing a guy here in Australia about the glyphs, the Gosford glyphs, and the story that has just revealed, and it's unbelievable. It's amazing. Yeah. And it's not Stephen Strong. It's actually a whole other story, and one that's just gorgeous, and it goes back to it's about our history. Yeah. Reminder, go and buy a t-shirt, support CCN, get your I do not consent t-shirt, or I am an unfucker, or odd and proud. And if you have any ideas for some other t-shirt slogans, let us know. What else? That's it.
That's it. That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote. So we'll see everyone. I'll see you Friday night. I'm doing a special presentation as an introduction to the Untangled Gathering. Is that 11 o'clock London time, I think, Biggie, right? I think. I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, 11 p.m. London
11
time.
p.m. London time, which is 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and Saturday. And I'm not quite sure what our start time is on Saturday. We'll have that all hammered out.
Okay, and I'll see you guys on Friday, my time, for Collective Imagination with Michael. And have a great couple of days, everybody. And we'll see you soon. Thanks for the conversations.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious consumer Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN high-definition downloads. You can now purchase a high-definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high-definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.